last goal for Super Bowl 11. Last goal for the year. You can go ahead and get excited because I'm excited too. Okay, so we're going to work backwards. This is where you got to think. This is like so geometry-like next year. Like all geometry is a matter of critical thinking. There's so much critical thinking that you do in geometry. And this is kind of like that, a little bit. Okay? You'll do a whole chapter on circles where you'll use distance, midpoint, parabola, Pythagorean theorem. Oh, there's all kinds of stuff. Okay, so here we go. We're going to find the equation of the circle given this information. So remember when we did find the equation of the lines given information, you hated it. Stop hating it, okay? Embrace it. Now we're going to find the equation of the circle given information. Now, you've got to have a general visual in your mind of what the equation of a circle looks like. And ironically, there's probably a question somewhere on the assessment that you're taking that looks like that. So you have that visual given to you basically. Okay? So when we go back here where we're finding the equation, you're going to think about what that looks like now, and we're going to plug this information in. So if my center is at -3, +7, that means that I'm going to have an x plus 3, because remember, when we have the parentheses given, we take the opposite of what we see there. So x plus 3 squared plus, because my k is 7, that's going to be y minus 7 squared. And if the radius is 5, the number that goes behind the equals is the radius squared. So that's going to be 25. Now what I would do, when you can, is kind of think backwards now. What's the center? -3, 7. Okay. What's the square, or the radius? Square root of 25, 5. Okay. Kind of think backwards to make sure you did it correctly then. Okay. Question? Okay, my next one. Center's at -2, -6. So x plus 2, because it's the opposite, plus y plus 6, I forgot to say quantity squared, is the radius squared. 2 square root 7 squared is 28. 2 times 2 is 4. Square root 7 times square root 7 is 7. 4 times 7 is 28. Or punch in your calculator. Now, I'm going to show you this one with a graph, but I would not expect you to graph it. Don't graph it to do that. If you needed to sketch the graph yourself, you could. Once I show it to you, I don't think you'll need to anymore. Okay, so my center is -5, +2. So I'm going to have x plus 5 quantity squared plus y minus 2 quantity squared. So when I plug in the HK for my center, I change the sign so it fits the formula. And then it's tangent to the x-axis. Now tangent has a couple different meanings in math. Tangent is a trigonometric function. Okay, a tangent, sine, cosine, tangent. It's a trigonometric function, which you'll learn about in pre-calc. Okay, but tangent also means is that it touches something in one point only. Okay, so if I were to draw what this looks like, this is what it would look like. If I can do it well. 1, 2. -5, 2. So here's my center. And it's going to be tangent to the x-axis. Okay? So it's going to touch the x-axis in one point. Okay, so it's not going to do this. It's not going to be like that, because it touches the x-axis twice here. Intersects it, actually. We're not even intersecting. We're just touching it in one point. We're not even passing through it. So the circle's going to look like this. And I'm not very good at drawing this, but just bear with me. That's not a circle at all, but you get my point here. Okay? So it's going to touch the x. It's not going to intersect. It's just going to touch it. So if it touches the x-axis in one point here, this is my x-axis, what is this distance? 2. So my radius is 2. and if I square it, it's 4. So here's my little hint. If it's tangent to the x-axis, all you gotta do is square the y value. And if it's tangent to the y-axis, we would square the x value. Okay? Because think about it. Let's say I said tangent to the x, or the y. My circle would be like this, and I would have found that distance, which would be 5 units. Okay? So, when it's tangent to the x, you're just going to square the y. When it's tangent to the y, you would square the x. So you don't have to draw a picture, but you could if you wanted to. Question on that one? Clarification on that one? Some of these things you're going to have to take home and really look at and think about, like the next two, the last two. Okay, my center is at 1, 4, and it contains the point 5, negative 6. So I'm going to have x minus 1 quantity squared plus y minus 4 quantity squared equals. And I got to find my radius. So contains and passes through mean the same thing. So I'm going to draw a little sketch again. You won't have to draw a sketch anymore after I show this to you. Okay, so that's really off scale, but we'll deal with it. Okay, so my center's at 1, 4. And it contains the point 5, negative 6, which is like down here. I'm going to go way off my paper. Okay, so that means that it looks something, it's a big circle. It looks something like this. Okay, so I've got my center, and I've got a point that my circle passes through. Not a good circle, but you got the gist of it. So this represents the radius, which I need. What did I just do to find that radius? I just gave you the distance formula. So I'm going to use my distance formula between these 2 points, and that's going to give me my radius. So I'm going to use the distance formula to get the radius now. Okay, so I'm going to leave that sketch there so you can see that, but I'll apply my distance formula now. I'll go under here. So I'm going to take my x minus my x squared plus my y minus my y squared. So I get negative 4 squared. My minus minus becomes plus, so that's 10 squared. So 16 plus 100, square root of 116. Don't worry about simplifying that. Don't worry about breaking it up to 4 times something. Because whatever I get anyway, this represents the radius. Here, I need to put the radius squared. So if I square the square root of 116, I get 116. So lots of things we're pulling together in this problem. So again, I'm going to repeat that. I don't have to simplify this particular one any further because I'm going to do something with it. So the square root of 116 is my radius, but when I plug it into my equation, this number is the radius squared. So when I take the square root of 116 and square it, you just get what's underneath. We've used that concept with when we solved radical equations in the last chapter. Okay, and my last one. Last problem of the whole year. Think of all you've learned. Okay. Endpoints of the diameter are 4, 5, and 6, negative 7. I am not given a center here, but think about what this means again. I'll sketch a little graph. You won't need to sketch it again, or, I don't think you will. 3, 4. It doesn't really help to sketch it because it doesn't give you numbers. 6. Okay, so something like that. So 4, 5. It's about right there. 6, negative 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6, negative 7 down here. These are endpoints of the diameter, so it's going to look like it's going to go way off my paper. Okay? It's way off my paper. But I need the center and the radius. The center would be the midpoint of that line. So I have 2 endpoints of a diameter. The diameter has to go through the center of the circle. So all I got to do is find the midpoint, which is going to give me my center. So I'm going to do that first. And remember that that's your x plus your x over 2, and your y plus your y over 2. So 10 over 2 is 5. Negative 2 over 2 is negative 1. I will not give you fractions for that. So just know that. I'm very keen and in tune with that, okay? I'm not going to make the algebra part more challenging. I want you to know how to do this part. Okay, so that's my center. Okay, so my center is about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about here. Now, I need to find the radius. I have 2 options. 3 options, really. I could find the distance between the 2 points they gave me and just take half of it. I wouldn't do that, because when you're doing half of radical stuff, it makes it more complicated. Or you find the distance between the 4, 5 and the center you just found, or the 6, negative 7 and the center you just found. They will give you the same answer. So I would use the center that you found with one of those points. Then you don't have to do half of it and all of that. Okay? I'm going to use the 4, 5 and the 5, 1. So I'm going to have my y, which is x, 5 minus my other x, 4, squared. My y, which is negative 1, minus my other y, which is 5, squared. So 1 squared, negative 6 squared, 1 plus 36, which is the square root of 37. So now, when I plug all this in, my center, my radius, into my formula, I'm going to have x minus 5 quantity squared plus y plus 1 quantity squared equals, and again, this is my radius, but my equations, number on the other side of equals is the radius squared, so I take the square root of 37, square it, and I get 37. That's a very geometry-like question. In fact, you'll probably repeat something like that, but you'll have like 3 more things added to that question, kind of thing. All right, that finishes us up.